some really don't get it. They don't. Now initially, I was going to start a rant video about a few favorite people of mine, a person perhaps, and I said, you know what, done feeding that fire. I had my fun poking. It's okay though. If I really want to make an impact on someone's life, I'll just drive an hour away and make a visit and say hello to some people. But that's not the case. This case is about how people perceive what ministers are. Ministers are what they want to be. However, a lot of them come from a tradition where a minister or pastor has some type of moral high ground or moral example. Now, when I heard this from a particular lady, literally comparing me to conventional religions, what would you do if you go and you see a person who's, in death row or wherever the case may be? And I wouldn't be seeing too many people from death row. I don't do prison ministries. But it's simply, you're there to do your time. So when it comes right down to it, I can choose and select who and what I'll be doing and what, basically who I am. Because when I see people who try to measure me up to some type of pedestal, it reminds me of the people who actually do put themselves on a pedestal and fail, such as the evangelists who would preach against homosexuality, and they'll have a boy toy waiting for them at the hotel, or they'll anti-promiscuity and they'll have sex with hookers. So why embrace the hypocrisy? Why do all that? I might mean not for everyone, but the thing is, I'm quite the open book. What you see is what you get. So when you see people out there trying to create some type of moral standard or high ground for me, it makes me wonder if that's because they lack their own and they seek that out for me. You see what I'm getting at? I want to go off and liberate that kind of thought. Yes, I may not be the perfect example, and I do recall telling some pastors and preachers and ministers to fuck themselves, but they needed to be told so. But that's for anybody. What makes a pastor or reverend anyone special? The thing is, they're only special if you make them special. That's simple as that. They are a man, they are a woman alike. They are no different than you or I. So when it comes right down to it, when it comes to living up to a standard of sorts, I always tell people to live on your own. Morality is yours, and yours to have and create. If you come from a moralistic background and you're trying to find out what works for you, do so. And if you need to take baby steps, take the baby steps. But that's the thing. A lot of people feel as though they need to be led. They want to be sheeple. And that's not the case. So I like it when I have debates with people, or they come across saying, well, if you're a reverend of a church, you're not coexisting, and you're not doing this, and you're not doing that. As if they were members of my church, my board members, or if they were even the officers of the holding company, which they're not. So when I talk to people, if I talk to people who speak in authority of any nature regarding my organization or me, I find it amusing how little they really know. Because after all, it's all about liberating yourself from your past, liberating yourself from the convention of society. Pretty much comes right down to it. To the point where, you can be as obtuse or more myself. Am I, a perfect example for young children? Not necessarily, but I know there's a line. But that's the funny part. People want to sit there and play these little fucktard games about things, which I have no really time for. Except now, because it's a good example. I always like to use people who are, how could I put it, tools. I make use of them. And that's what I do. So when I have someone telling me I'm not a good pastor or a good reverend or a good minister, and ministers don't do this and ministers don't do that, Well, apparently I do. And if I don't live up to your standard, move along. I don't need you. So, that's the case, and that's where it's at. But I do find it funny, though, when people feel as though they want to step up on that soapbox and kind of get preachy about morality with me. Because, well, those who usually do are behind some type of sock account, fake account, magical name, or what have you. So I find it even more amusing. And so when I go off and I deal with such people, to be honest, I don't deal with them. But they're interesting fodder for food. They're food for thought. They are setting a good example of the level of retard that I've dealt with before and the level of retard I'm dealing with now. So if you want to go to a church and through a church you find your morality, there's something wrong, in my opinion. And if you think anyone who's in a church or running a church has to fall into your form of morality, there's still something fucked up with you. But that's just my opinion. But if you like to be told what to do, then feel free to join a conventional religion, not a uncommon one or minority one. Because it sounds to me you're looking for parameters that I just cannot and will not set for myself or for you. And if you seek liberation and you want to see things from a different perspective, don't have to follow me. You may want to listen to what I have to say, maybe even take a look as to what I was saying to see whether or not it may not work for you. And if it does, more power. And if it don't, again, move along, skip a channel. How hard is it? Sometimes I wonder if some people in this world would actually live long enough if breathing wasn't involuntary. Or you might say, good thing that breathing is involuntary, otherwise many people would just simply die. So that's where we're at. I deal with a lot of different levels of idiot, and I deal with a lot of different levels of really cool people. And you don't have to necessarily agree with me to be a cool person. But when you have people that kind of sync with what we are saying, it helps. Those who go against me, I like good debate. But you got to know how to debate me. And that's the best part. If you actually can be a polar opposite of who and what I am or what I stand for, and conduct yourself in a manner that you can hold topic and complete your task of finishing the topic at hand that you're discussing, you'll get my respect. But not many people can do that without ad hominems or anything else really, or changing subjects. So with that said, this is where I stand. I will be who I am, and people may not like it, but that's okay. I don't really care. But if people want to stand up on a high moral ground on things, make sure you can lead by example yourself. And those who do, you ought to do it in a real account, not a fake one. That's why I always have a little trepidation of accepting people who call themselves, Magicpedia or Devil Dog or whatever the fuck. So these are the things that I deal with. But again, that's why I don't take people who use such names with such seriousness, because they go off and they act a fool, and then kind of like waste everybody's time, mine, theirs, and the audience thereof. And quite frankly, I don't have time for it. So there you go. So that's my lesson today, is the morality and standards of your life are yours. And if you want something to live up to or live by, find that to yourself. Don't rely on a pastor or a minister. They're going to fail you all the time. One thing I've learned, even people who you take on as a mentor, whether they know it or not, they too themselves can fail you. I've had that happen to me a couple of times. People I respect would folly like a college student would. You know, with the antics they've done or things they've seen or said. So, see the people around you for who they are. They're people, and people will fail and fall. So, take what lessons you learn from other people to stride and make use of it, and don't let it be a rule for you. Just more of a guidance. So anyways, that's my 2 cents about all this. I had a nice heated debate. Normally I would go on a big rant about it and add another 10-15 minutes to this tape. But I wasn't going to give that person that much attention. But there was a good topic about this morality thing. And of course, they're trying to go right-hand path and all these other paradigms that do not suit me whatsoever. So it just showed me how uneducated the person was in this debate. So, you know, I simply deleted all my posts and left the group, because I'm not going to deal with idiots. And that's fine. But how do you deal with idiots? How do you deal with people who are uneducated? I try to become the same person no matter where I am, but sometimes you do have to find yourself adjusting. And I do that a lot with school, because with school you got to be the student, and so I do play the role of a student, and whether it's good or bad. But in the same respect, when you're dealing with classmates or anyone else in the school itself, you don't really meet too many intellectuals. And I'm not saying I am, bully day today. It's more of who can keep up with what conversation. If I mention things like 1984, people look at me funny. Or if I say Freud, they think it's something in the menu, the cafeteria menu. So how do you converse with people? Or if you do converse with people, and those overhear you are tweaking out because they're afraid that Jesus might hear, then that's what you have to deal with. So sometimes you have to dumb yourself down to your environment, unfortunately. But that's fine. But in other cases, I have met people who I listen to, take notes, and that's what keeps me going and stimulates me. So, anyways, that's what works for me. So if I am not up to your expectations, if I am not up to your standards, sorry to disappoint. The standards I live by are my own. And that's what I'm trying to teach and preach. Period. Liberate yourself by being yourself. Cheers.